All right, this will be a super quick one, so let's get it started.
Yeah, let's see how you do under pressure. Oh, yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay, hey, yeah, ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era.
My name is Georg, and I am your host for the Nomadic Business Insight podcast. Thank you guys for listening in. This is an episode that I've been looking forward to a lot. And as you know, in this podcast, listeners have the chance to follow me as a serial entrepreneur. And from time to time, I'm doing deep dives with other entrepreneurs, founders, or venture capitalists. But today, I'm back with a solo episode, and we're diving back into property development. As you know, we have just acquired a property in North Norway, which we have quite extensive plans for. And in this episode, we're going to talk more about that.
You are listening to LD Podcast. Would you like to publish with us? Tell us your story at www.ld.studio/podcasts. Edited and published by LD Studio.
It almost feels a bit weird being back here with a solo episode. I mean, we've had some amazing guests the last episode, and the feedback we're getting is really good. We've had talks with Sander about property development and how to invest in Norway. We've had another episode with Axel about how to become a successful network builder and salesperson. And we also had actually our first ever Norwegian episode about us moving to Lofoten and how the, let's say, nomadic entrepreneurial world is developing there. So if you haven't checked out those episodes, you should definitely head back a couple of episodes before you listen into this one. As you know, this podcast is for entertainment purpose only. The concepts and product that we feature in these episodes, we may or may not have any personal investments in, and all the stuff that we talk about is handpicked by the Nomadic Business Insight team. And with that, let's move into this episode's topics, which is our construction project in Norway. I just actually am currently recording this episode in Bodø, which is one of the most northern cities in Norway, and is actually also going to be our closest city once we move up to Lofoten. For those of you who don't know what the Lofotens are, it's kind of a half island stretching out from the Norwegian country pretty much in the most northern part, and the property that we bought is located in a village called Sørvågen, which is again in a municipality called Moskenes. And from Bodø, you can take a direct ferry from the mainland out to Moskenes. So that was actually one of our main triggers for buying that property, to have easy access to an international airport with only a 3 hours ferry, which again is actually for free. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about how we acquired the property, what our main targets with acquiring the property is, and also kind of starting to give you insight about what we're doing when we actually start working with the development of this property. That's kind of the state where I'm in now, and that's also why I just currently visit Lofoten. So yeah, I got a lot of exciting things to share. But before that, I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're just in these days dropping our new merch series at the LD Studio homepage. You can obviously also visit our store in Ålesund. It is a series that is way more focusing on the creative, hipster, good-looking people. So that series is a custom design. It looks really good, and a lot of our employees will also be using it. So it's kind of like, let's put it in a way, a work uniform, but also something that I think the general public can relate very to. So I'm very excited to start dropping pictures from that series, and as per now, I think you should be very soon able to order it from our homepage. So just keep on going on ld.studio to check out the shop there. We'll be shipping worldwide. And in future episodes, I will also once in a while drop some discount codes for those of you who are waiting for that. Well, Norway and North Norway. So this is kind of more a personal episode. Me and Sylvia, we were for a long while discussing that we might as well move out from Norway, and that was the time where we considered starting our building projects in North Spain. And then, as I told you in one of our first episodes of the MBA, when we still were in Ecuador, just out of nowhere, this property in North Norway appears on our, let's put it like Craigslist account, Norwegian finn.no. And in a matter of few days, we decide to buy it. I can actually reveal the price. I don't know if I did this in the first episode, and excuse me if I'm overlapping a couple of the topics, but if you haven't listened into the first MBA podcast that where we are actually talking about the acquisition of that property, you should go back and listen to that. But I think we paid like 40,000 euros in total for the property and the house, and the whole sales documentation didn't tell so much more than a couple of pictures that it was a quite old property and renovation was necessary. But now I've actually had the chance to be up there. I dedicated almost a full week to go up there, visit the properties, get to know the neighbors, and also start to make business relations up there. And one of the first things I discovered is that the property is actually that moist and has so many damage both in the foundational walls but also in the whole property, the land itself, that it will just continue to gather water and get you will never be able to grow anything there, and any foundations you might try to restore or upcycle or rebuild will just again get damaged. So we're playing with the talk to demolition the whole house. Actually, that seems at this current point is more cheap than actually being recycling what is already there. More about that later in this episode. For those of you interested in property development, I wanted to use this episode to give you more of insight of what we're doing in a preparational phase, as we're not moving up there ourselves before January. So that's the main kind of idea behind this property. And I know that you guys listening in, a lot of you are owning properties, some of you are interested in acquiring, and some of you might be interested as we in flipping houses. When we bought the property, we were quite interested in the flipping journey. So go there, redesign it, make it really good looking, and then sell it again. But throughout the last months, we've actually kind of fallen in love with the place, and all our wishes for what would be up there just got confirmed from my visit. There are massive mountains. There are beautiful neighbors, so down to earth and so easy to speak with. And there's also a lot of opportunities in terms of going out eating, going to a bar, even though it is a super small village with just around 700 people living there. I feel we have everything we need there to make it our future family base. So nothing is decided per this moment, but it is very likely that we will actually spend our life there. And in that way, it has kind of turned from a flipping project to a family home development project, which doesn't really make it less interesting. The first thing that we did after acquiring the property, and this was before summer, during springtime, we started to draw sketches of what we wanted to build there. And we also started to reach out to several architects in our network for someone that would like to collaborate with us, because obviously one of the most costly things developing property is doing technical sketches, technical revisions, having all the plans in place to get the building project confirmed by authorities, which I assume in most Western countries and most modern countries you have to do so. Even in South America and Asia, I know that confirmation of authority in terms of a building approval are quite strict. And you can imagine in Norway, it is one of the strictest in the world. So architects are expensive. We obviously designed a very custom, very fancy house with a lot of weird design solutions that are really important for us. So it was never a way to do this building project without an architect involved. And we reached out in a network, and we seemed to land a collaborational deal with one of our really good friends in Ecuador, Francisco Meja, which is in the process of inheriting the architect studio of his father together with his brother. They have for quite some years done a lot of big real estate projects, but now they're moving into more private property development. It's just like a perfect match where he's aspiring to go into a more high-end market, and we really love the work he's been doing. Hence, it felt really natural to do a collaboration with him where we help him build his communication game and helping him reaching the kind of clientele that he wants to work with, and he helps us with the design. During the summer, that is something that we've been working quite a lot on, the sketches, the designs, and during my visit now, I'm kind of using all the time I have at hand to do measurements of the property, do a really good topographic scan, which means figuring out where there are rocks and where there are hills and where there is moist, so that even though he works from remote, he has a perfect understanding of the property that we have at hand. After that, we will sit together with him and do final renders of the whole building project. And at the same time, we're already applying for governmental approval of the concept. After that, our next steps are to get quotes from building firms that would like to help us tear down the property. It is always an option for us to tear down the house ourselves, and we actually have friends that could be really helpful in this. I really would love to do this with our good friend Martin. He has already said that he'd be really interested to come up to the north and help us out. Hence, we're kind of in a evaluation stage if we want to hire someone professional to do it or do it ourselves. Anyway, it's going to be a quite exciting journey that we will make sure to document well and put out videos, because it's not every day that you get to smash down a house in such spectacular environments. More than that, we obviously are seeking funding in terms of credits from the bank. So this week I sat down with the local bank up there to discuss these kind of terms. And I also spend a lot of time getting to know the neighbors. As you probably heard, if you understand Norwegian and listen into the collab episode we did with Øyvind and Bjarne from Lofoten, I'm spending a lot of time in preparation to get to know people in the area. I'm spending a lot of time to get to know the neighbors, because everything that can make us feel more welcome coming there makes a transition and such a big step easier. So instead of just moving there on a date and then saying hello to everyone, I already made some very nice introductions and ate dinners with a couple of our neighbors. And actually, some of the funny outcome has been some of the neighbors have offered us to sell more of their property to us so that we have an even bigger property. One of the neighbors is really interested in helping us out with digging the moist earth from the property and draining it and putting gravel to make it a good flow of water and moist during the most wettest time of the year, so that you actually get a dry property. Hence, I feel like this visit has been absolutely necessary to make those collaborations come alive. And it's also taught me a lot about what is going on in the village. One of the things that I discovered is that on every year around the 20th of December, which happens to be the kind of area, the weekend where our daughter Zakira has her birthday, which is 21st of September, they are celebrating a light show. They have something called lysvandring. So the whole village gathers, and a lot of people from the outside come, and they walk around this big lake. I think last year was over 1,500 people joining in. So that is something I didn't know about at all. It's happening now. It's just around the corner. Unfortunately, we won't be able to join this year, but it is something exciting to look forward to, as every year Zakira will have a light show for her birthday. I also got to visit kindergarten and schools, made a couple of friends there. It's always nice to know where we're bringing Zakira once we're moving up there. And we made arrangements with the neighbors that they are fine with us placing 2 containers on their property. One, which we're currently building out in Ålesund to make kind of our living and bedroom whilst the whole house gets torn down. And one that will function as a storage unit and workshop for the whole building process. Many of the neighbors tips us about the challenges of building a house in the northern hemisphere, especially considering rain, extreme weather, abrupt snowfall, all these kind of things that you maybe not consider if you'd be more south in the world. You kind of got to be prepared for there. So having a whole big container as a storage unit and workshop will enable us to at any time just close the doors, stop work, have all our equipment in a dry space, and also not having to clean everything all the time. And a funny story about that is I actually had to discuss quite much with Sylvia to get that confirmed, as she said, no, there is no reason for us to invest money in this kind of things before we come up there. Let's just move up there and establish ourselves in the house. But it's kind of not the process I'm looking for. I want to have it a smooth ride, I want to know where I'm sleeping. So I'd rather invest time in building my future bedroom for the 1 or 2 years where we're going to be in a building stage in Ålesund, and then move it up there finished, instead of coming up there and feeling that my whole life is already a mess, and then having to, in that mess, also figure out where my future bed is. So that's not something that I'm very keen on. Luckily, I got to convince Sylvia that we can invest in that and already build our bedroom in Ålesund. So then we're just going to move the 2 containers up there in the garden, which is just going to be amazing and make the whole process of moving our whole life and home to a new place so much smoother. Ultimately, as you probably figured out, we are actually preparing for moving there by building our intermediate house in Ålesund. And I know this is maybe not the way that most people would do it, as it is both restrained by economical limits and also time at hand, and how much is comfort important for you. But those things are all very crucial for me to be functioning, to work effectively, to be able to maintain my responsibilities in my jobs. And therefore, it makes totally sense for me to be investing that money and that time before we move there. We've had our chairman in our property company source a couple of containers, and ultimately we bought one. Part of the story is actually we bought one first at a really good price, but just a couple of days before it was supposed to be shipped to Ålesund, we figured out that the whole thing was a scam. Probably lost that money. Still trying to track down that person with local authorities, but it's not been an easy ride. But we're getting there, and eventually, we'll have that container up there on the day where we're moving, which means just, moving into a perfectly smooth sleeping room, office, and actually having fun while building. I want to go into this project not being restrained by where am I going to live, where am I going to sleep, where am I going to put my dirty clothes. Just want to be full on into tearing that old house down. And yeah, that's pretty much where we are at this moment. We estimate that the whole building process with tearing down, draining the property, building a new foundation and putting up the framework of the house will cost around 200 to 250,000 euros, which we partly cover with our own savings, but also with a credit from the bank, backed by properties that we already own. And if you want to know more about these kind of investment strategies, then go one episode back and listen to our talk with Sander. There we touched down on how owning more properties is actually giving you enough backing to be reinvesting in bigger projects. And this is also a quite interesting thing for us, because we are acquiring a property for 40,000 euros. We're maybe in total building for 300,000 euros, which means we have a beautiful, stunning, massive house for 350,000 euros, including the property. But the house, when it's done, it will maybe be worth around 900,000 to 1 million euro, which means that throughout the whole building process, we will have saved, or we will have made 600 to 700,000 euros, which is one of the most easiest way actually to acquire capital, because there will be potentially no credits left when we finish, because we're just paying quite aggressively down on them with our salaries and saving which we make on the way. And that way the credit is just kind of like a backing to know that we will have the money to finish the project. And when we come out of the project, we'll have a house worth, 1 million euro that is no credit on, which means we can literally go to any bank or investor and say, hey, we want to have a 1 million euro investment into this project of your money or your credit, and if you're unsure, we can put our house at stake, and that makes a lot of future investments way more easy. That's obviously not the main drive. The main drive is to make a stunning family home, and I'll continue to make these episodes to keep you guys updated because I feel it's like a journey in the making, so it's hard to tell you everything about it here and now. Maybe I'll make an episode every month, every 1.5 months, to let you know about the updates and challenges we meet. Anyway, we're expecting to move up there in January, so the whole fall of 2024 will be used to continue planning, continue confirming quotes by building companies, hiring in, and also booking bigger machines and equipment that we need, so that when we move up there in January, we'll have a month or 1.5 months of more calm establishing phase, and then we'll just go straight in tearing down the building. Because the summer periods are not too long in North Norway, which means we kind of have to use that time as effective as possible. We want to tear down the house in March, April, then maybe start building the foundations just before summer, finishing up after summer, so that we by 2025, by the end of the year, sit with at least a full framework of the house. And then actually our plan is to continue the building ourselves, everything like insulation, windows, floors, walls, furniture, bathroom. That is very exciting work, and that is work that we actually personally want to do. And it might also be the work where you can save the most money. So we'll keep you guys updated. Thank you for listening into this episode. Remember that our merch is dropping, so check that out. And we're also dropping a couple of new podcast shows at LD Studio, where I just know that we happen to be planning and launching a mountaineering podcast with 2 very talented young hosts, and we're always open for new collaborations. Our podcast team is out there scouting people with talent, scouting people with ideas. So if you have any idea for a show that you want to host, then know that we in LD Studio quite aggressively invest in helping you guys with equipment, with producing, with publishing, with strategic advice, pretty much everything you need to set up a really good professional podcast show. So if you think you are the one, or you have some friends and you guys have a great idea, then reach out at podcasts@ld.studio. I'll put the email in the show notes so that you can find them there too. Thank you guys for listening. My name is Georg, and we'll be back with a new episode of the Nomadic Business Insight podcast very soon.
Thank you for listening to LD Podcast. We are continuously looking for the most talented innovators. No matter your background or expertise, shoot us an email at high5@ld.studio with your skills and portfolio.
I still feel like we could slow down tempo, but I like to have the drive up, like doing single episodes. Well, you guys make up your mind.